Good morning, McGraw.
I think we treat police officers, we pay them like it's 1950, but we put 2000 and 21st century problems on their shoulders.
More or less, that's correct. I mean, historically, St. Louis included, law enforcement has been a blue-collar business. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's probably some of the best cops I've worked with never went to college. So that's really not the issue, but the issue is you now want them to do, as you've mentioned, some of the things, 19,000 things that really aren't traditional law enforcement. Think about in a given day or night in St. Louis, the number of cops that have to deal with drug-addicted people, homeless people, and mentally ill people, because, unfortunately, we have way too many of them roaming around on the street. Every one of those takes a different skill set to handle, to de-escalate, to get them into a situation where they're not harming themselves or in particular you, if you're approaching them. And it is too much sometimes to think a cop can do all of the above.
Not to mention, they drive home and they listen to talk radio and somebody criticizes them for the job they do. And then, oh, by the way, they make $40,000 a year.
Exactly. And do they make mistakes? Sure. Do you and I make mistakes? Sure. I mean, we all do. Unfortunately, I don't point a gun at anybody anymore. It's not a life or death situation. But, these decisions are made sometimes in a split second. It's clear in some of these that could there have been another approach? Maybe. But it is the reality of what they deal with. And I think some of them, McGraw, are gun shy to get involved in a confrontation just because they're concerned about you and I reviewing it next day on the radio via video.
Yeah. What I often say on the radio, and am I right or wrong, Brad Garrett, that we think police officers are there to stop crime before it happens. That's an unfair, criticism of police. They're there once crime happens to deal with it, but it's almost impossible to superimpose or blame police officers for the rise in crime or police chiefs for the rise in crime.
Well, that's basically true. I mean, in departments of size, McGraw, they do have intelligence units, they do have crime prevention units, and they do work proactively with the feds, particularly on gangs and other things, to stop people or groups to do things before they actually do them. But you're right. I mean, the reality of a uniformed officer in St. Louis or any other jurisdiction is to react and respond to whatever happens in front of them. Or they, get dispatched to a location, or as you just mentioned, they end up on flood duty. So yes, it's in my face. I have to deal with it right now.
Yeah. Brad Garrett, ABC News, Crime and Terrorism, man. It's always a pleasure. Be safe, and thanks for checking in.
All right, McGraw.
You got it. That Sunday morning we were at Cottleville, and the police were out there making sure that cars didn't drive through the flood. And guess what? Some car drove through the flood, and then they had to call the Hummer to get the kid, to get the person out of the flood because they were an idiot because they drove through the flood.
Just to say, it only takes 12 to 18 inches, according to the National Weather Service, for a car, SUV, truck to float away.
Right. But then, so the cops are there doing their duty, making sure no one's doing something stupid. Somebody does something stupid, then they got to stopping people from doing something stupid to go save someone who did something really stupid.
Yes.
It's really, the police, you can't win for losing with these police.
They do everything from what may be considered the mundane to the very, very dangerous
They do
stuff.
everything nobody else wants to do. They're forced to do it, and then we can complain about them constantly. So it's not an easy situation being a police officer. Meanwhile, they're working on, 18-hour days with this flood stuff. So, you know what? Nothing like offering them a couple of sandwiches, a couple of donuts, maybe a hot cup of coffee, and, thank them.